So there was a power cut at my work the other day, and the lights weren't working. But one of my workmates had the best idea. He said we just needed to put our hands in the air, because according to an old Chinese proverb, many hands make light work. Hey YouTube, Rob back again with a brand new video. Well, it's that time again. Time to do my end of the month DVD Blu-ray update. A bit of a bought and watched style video of just stuff that I've sort of watched and bought and watched and got around to watching. Yeah, we'll make a start. Okay, so we'll start with a Blu-ray here. Now this is a movie that I think came out a few years ago, and it's one of those films that sort of made a bit of a buzz when it first came out, and then like a lot of other films that just no one seems to talk about it that much. This here is My Work with Marilyn. Now, so I remember when this film came out, I wasn't particularly interested, I suppose, in seeing it. But I did sort of see this reasonably cheap, so I decided to pick it up. And I am a bit of a fan of sort of biopics about sort of famous people, and I think they're always, sort of good watches. They're normally not necessarily all that accurate sometimes, but they're still a good watch. Yeah, so I gave this one a bit of a watch the other day, and I actually didn't sort of mind it that much. I guess I'm a bit of a sucker for a good sort of love story. So this is sort of about, I guess, Marilyn Monroe and this guy here. I forgot his name. What was his name? Colin Clark. He sort of wrote a book, and it was this sort of this film sort of based on that book, and just sort of tells him about, I was judging to tell by the title, his sort of week with Marilyn. Yeah, I did sort of, after sort of watching the film, and I did sort of watch the special features, and I did do a bit of a research on this film and sort of that time period of, when sort of, Marilyn Monroe was alive. It's actually quite an interesting story, I think, really. So essentially just sort of, Marilyn Monroe here, from what I read anyway, she was getting a bit sort of sick of, playing sort of the dumb blonde in all these sort of movies, and she wanted to sort of do a bit more of a serious film. So she sort of went over to England and did sort of a film, and then you also got Colin Clark here. He was sort of very much wanted to be in the sort of the movie business, and he got a job on this film, what they call the third director, which just kind of sounds impressive, I suppose, but he's basically just sort of like the tea boy or the errand boy. He just did all sort of the odd jobs for the director and sort of the other actors, sort of thing. Now, sort of this time of Marilyn's life, she was having a bit of a hard time, sort of in her personal life. She just sort of got married, and that wasn't particularly going very well, and she was on sort of medication and sort of like uppers and downers sort of things. She'd sort of be sort of real tired in the morning, so she'd sort of have uppers to sort of keep her awake, and then she had to sort of take downers into the day to sort of get to sleep. So she was a bit sort of sleeping patterns were a bit erratic sort of thing, and while she was sort of on the film, she was always late to the filming, and could never sort of remember her lines, and a lot of the sort of say the director and other actors were getting a bit sick of it sort of thing, and so she was they were sort of giving a bit of a hard time about it. Whereas Colin Clark, he was a bit more sort of, I guess, awestruck, I suppose, of Marilyn Monroe, as I suppose a lot of young guys were. So he was a lot sort of nicer to her, and sort of kind of the point where she wouldn't sort of speak to anyone else. The only way she'd sort of communicate was through him, sort of thing. So he was sort of, I guess, the fixer, I suppose, of supposedly trying to get this film made and get Marilyn Monroe to sort of do her part in the film, sort of thing. I guess it's just sort of about sort of their week, supposedly their week together, and they had a bit of a romance, and supposedly I've sort of read that some people that were sort of around at the time during this reckon that the story that Colin Clark was sort of saying was not particularly true. They don't sort of remember him being on set that much, sort of thing. So it's it could all be a all made up story by him, but it was still quite a good story though, a nice love story. But yeah, so it was a film I actually quite liked though. I quite liked it. I thought Michelle Williams here was quite good playing Marilyn Monroe. I think some people reckon she wasn't really all that great. But I definitely think Marilyn Monroe was a bit sort of, I think in some ways, no one really knew who she was exactly. I think a lot of people just sort of the only real sort of face that you saw was sort of the Marilyn Monroe sort of character, I suppose. We never really understood quite the woman behind her, sort of thing. And she definitely had a bit of, from what I've read anyway, a bit of troubled life. She did sort of also have sort of a few sort of undisclosed sort of mental sort of problems too. I reckon. I can't remember what the name of the. She had like an illness, which was sort of a bit sort of not necessarily very well known about at the time. So she was sort of suffering from that. But anyway, it was a good film. I did actually quite like it. It's also got who else is in it? Michelle Williams, Kenneth Branagh, Eddie Redmayne, Emma Watson, and Judi Dench. So there's a few sort of stars in it as well. So yeah, a film I probably would recommend that because I did actually quite like it. So that's that one. Now on to a completely different film, different genre, different time period, and a bit more of a sort of a cheesy sort of fun top movie, I suppose. It's a film I've never sort of seen. I remember sort of watching the animated TV show when it was on TV when I was young, but I've never sort of seen the movie before. That's Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Adventure. So I got to watch for the first time the other day, and it was, yeah, not too bad, I suppose. It was very silly, and there were, a lot of sort of good moments to it, though, I thought. Just sort of about these two sort of airheads, I suppose, that are going to sort of fail their history exam, sort of their end of year exams, and so they sort of end up sort of going back in time and sort of meeting all these famous people that to help with their exam, I suppose. Trying to remember all these historical facts, I suppose. Yeah, it was probably not too much to say about it really, but it was just a fun watch, I suppose, and a film I've never sort of seen, and I have sort of heard people have sort of seen it. It's a bit of I guess some a bit of a cult classic, bit of a sort of a cult classic which I sort of missed, I suppose. So that's Bill and Ted. Okay, on to I guess a bit of a horror movie, I suppose, of some sorts. A Stephen King adapted movie version of one of his books. I sort of found real cheap in a second-hand store. That's the Graveyard Shift, which I think is like a mid-90s movie. I think it is. And it wasn't particularly that great. Very sort of low budget and dodgy acting in it as well. It's one of those sort of films that sort of has a lot of sort of build up to a lot of sort of story, and there's only the last sort of say 20 minutes or half an hour that we actually do sort of see a bit of action, a bit of horror action. So it's just sort of about sort of these group of employees in like a I think it's like a factory, like a sort of a wool factory. I'm not quite sure exactly what they do in this sort of factory. They sort of spin the wool or do something with it. Anyway, the boss there sort of asked them to sort of clean out the basement because it's a bit like a sort of a health and safety issue. The building won't get past unless they sort of clean up the basement, which is just full of old junk and a bit of like a health hazard, I suppose. So they've got to get rid of it before they allowed to continue, being a factory, type thing. So basically, as you can sort of imagine, in the basement, there's some sort of something down there, type thing. And it just, I guess that's essentially, I suppose, really. It's just sort of about, it's a lot of sort of build up and a lot of sort of, personal, like, stories about the people, and which has got nothing to do really with the thing in the basement sort of thing. That's just all filler, I suppose. I don't know. And then the last 2 minutes is sort of, horror action to it. But probably one I wouldn't necessarily recommend. I thought it was rather average. But I don't know. I guess it was sort of a fun way to sort of spend an hour and a half or whatever it was. That's the Graveyard Shift. Okay, on to a few sort of classic black and white movies, because I've sort of been getting into them, quite a lot recently. I got here the Quiet American. Now I've sort of seen I did sort of watch the remake a few years ago, and which had like Michael Caine and Brendan Fraser in it, which I did sort of own on DVD, which for some reason it mysteriously just disappeared from my collection. Not quite sure where that went to. I think someone might have stole it and pawned it or something. I don't know, whatever. But I did sort of watch this one the other day. It's sort of the original version. I think it's sort of based on a book. It sort of reminded me a lot of the other Good Morning Vietnam, you know, the Rob Williams film, had a similar sort of premise to it, I suppose. So it's sort of about, I guess in some ways, a bit of a sort of a love triangle, I suppose, between these three people, and sort of got is it Michael Redgrave? Yeah, Michael Redgrave. He's sort of the, I guess he's sort of the main character, I guess, and he's sort of like a journalist over in Shanghai, and I think it's the 50s, I think it is. Yeah, 1952 or something. He's sort of just doing sort of reports on sort of all these sort of things going on in Shanghai at the time. Sort of, there's a few sort of bombings going on, and the film is sort of about, I guess, sort of find out maybe who's behind all these sort of these bombings, and also sort of about, the film sort of starts out with sort of the quiet American. He sort of ends up sort of dying at the beginning of the film. So the film sort of a bit of a backtrack, I suppose, of trying to sort of find out what sort of happened to him, and also sort of who was sort of you know, causing all these bombings of all these sort of, you know, innocent people, sort of thing. As therefore, it's a bit of a sort of a love triangle between Michael Redgrave and the quiet American, and his sort of girlfriend. I think it's Fiang. I think it's her name, Fiang. Pretty sure that's how you pronounce her name. Because they're both, you know, both of the men are sort of in love with her, sort of thing, and but yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was probably a little bit of a sort of a slow burn, and I did sort of kind of guess, you know, how it was going to end, sort of thing, sort of about halfway through, sort of thing. But yeah, it wasn't too bad, you know, decent sort of acting to it, and yeah, just perhaps a little bit sort of drawn out, maybe just slightly. But yeah, that's The Quiet American. Now on to another sort of black and white film. This is a very old one from I think 1934 or something. So it's very old, and in some ways perhaps a little bit sort of dated in, you know, some respects. The title here sort of definitely sounds like a bit of a porno, but it's not a porno though. This is Human Bondage. Yeah, from 1934. Leslie Howard and Bette Davis. A film that I think you probably have to be a bit of a sort of definitely a fan of sort of black and white movies, I think, to really enjoy it, because it was being a, you know, 1930s movie, it was a bit sort of dated. This is essentially, I think, supposedly supposed to be Bette Davis' sort of breakout role. This is kind of where she was, you know, became sort of famous sort of after doing this. So she's sort of it's very, I guess, it's almost a bit of a sort of simple sort of premise to it, I suppose. It's just sort of about sort of these two, and Leslie Howard, he's like a student doctor, and Bette Davis is kind of, she works in like a restaurant. She's like a waitress sort of thing, and he sort of falls, you know, mad in love with her, and yeah, to be honest, she's just a complete bitch to him, sort of thing. She's real sort of stuck up and selfish, and but he's sort of just, yeah, for some reason sort of mad in love with her, sort of thing, and so she just sort of ends up sort of somehow just sort of using him, I suppose, to sort of, you know, get free dinners, and, you know, getting him to sort of buy stuff for her all the time, and she sort of ends up leaving him for a, you know, a rich older man, and but we sort of find out, you know, a little time later that the rich man ends up being sort of married, and once he sort of finds out that Bette Davis is pregnant, he sort of, you know, gets rid of her, sort of thing. So now, you know, Bette Davis is sort of, you know, broke and pregnant, and sort of comes calling back to Leslie Howard here. Of course, I don't know, for some, you know, he sort of takes her back, which I can't quite understand. And that just sort of happens sort of throughout the film. She sort of ends up leaving him a few times, and she ends up sort of coming back to him, and he sort of, you know, does sort of, you know, take her back each time, sort of thing. I guess probably the premise, I suppose, or I guess sort of the title of the film, Human Bondage, I suppose, relates to, you know, being in love with someone, and in some respects, sometimes in relationships, is sort of one person's more in love with the other person than the other person is with them, you know, type thing. And, you know, you sort of love, I suppose, in some ways can be, or being in love is sort of kind of like a bondage sort of thing, where you sort of ties you up and you can't escape from it, you know, type thing. I guess that's what that means in some respects. But definitely, I mean, it wasn't a bad film. It was just, yeah, a bit dated, and I thought Bette Davis, her performance was I guess it's always quite interesting. I think it probably would have been. I can understand perhaps at the time why people thought that was she did a really great job, but I think I definitely thought her accent was not that great. Her English accent was not, pretty not that great at all, and her acting was perhaps a bit sort of over the top in in some respects, but I guess that's why she was why people thought it was such a good role, I suppose, because perhaps it was a bit different, a different sort of style of acting, I think, perhaps to what they'd sort of seen before. But yeah, probably a film I wouldn't, as I said before, wouldn't necessarily recommend unless you're a real sort of a fan of old 1930s movies, because it was it's almost perhaps a little bit dated. And I'm pretty sure there was another remake. I'm pretty sure this was based on a book, I think, originally, but I think there was a remake, I think, a bit later with Kim Novak, I think, which I've never sort of seen. But supposedly this is supposed to be the better version, apparently. Anyway, so that's if you're in bondage. Okay, on to some Blu-rays now. I picked up the Mad Max Trilogy, which I found really cheap in one of my local stores, and I haven't sort of seen these films for quite a number of years, and I didn't sort of get a chance to sort of go and see the new one, the Fury Road one, but I might perhaps rewatch all these three, and then I might perhaps end up sort of buying or watching the Fury Road when it comes out on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever. So I picked them up. They were really cheap, so they were definitely a great sort of pick up. And I did an order with Zavvi, or probably a few orders from Zavvi, I think. I kept buying a big pile. I picked up the Robocop Trilogy. I haven't sort of seen these films for quite a number of years either, actually. And I'm pretty sure the first movie at least originally got a remaster of the transfer. I'm not quite sure whether the other two films got one or not. And I'm not too sure what version this is going to be, the remastered version. I don't think it would be, because this was reasonably cheap, so I think they might be just trying to get rid of some of the old stock. But anyway, I'm still happy though. Robocop. I picked up Lucy with a slip cover, which I thought was pretty cool. I was thinking perhaps getting the steelbook, but I ended up saving a bit of money and just picking up the normal MRA style edition. This is a film I did actually quite like. A lot of people, it does get a few mixed reviews, I think, and but one I thought was actually really fun, and I do really enjoy it, and I'm a bit of a Scarlett Johansson fan. I think she's quite easy on the eye, as they say. I also picked up another film of hers, Under the Skin, which I haven't sort of seen. I think she made this. I think these films are both made last year. I think there's another film I think does get sort of mixed reviews. I don't sort of mind the artwork to this one, but it's rather dark though, which you can't really sort of see much. It's got a nice sort of black case though, which was pretty cool. So look forward to give this one a bit of a watch at some point. A few steelbooks. I picked up the Easy Rider steelbook because it was like a pretty cool edition. I have sort of seen this film. I'm pretty sure I watched it probably a long time ago, probably 15 years ago or something. I think one of my friends reckoned it was really good at the time, and I remember sort of watching it, and I think I remember, to be honest, I thought it was a bit of a boring film, but that was quite a while ago, so I thought I might perhaps give it a rewatch, and this was pretty cheap too, so I thought might as well buy the steelbook edition of it. That's Easy Rider with Jack Nicholson and Dennis Hopper, I think, is the main two actors in it. Another film I've never sort of seen either. Dr. Strangelove, or how I forgot to stop worrying. What's it called? I'm trying to remember what it's called now. Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learnt to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. That's the full title of it. Another one I think looks quite cool. I'll probably give that a bit of a watch it at some point. And then last of all, Frankenweenie, which I bought because I've never sort of seen the film, and I think the main reason I bought that was because it had a cool green case to it. It's pretty one of the sort of one of the main reasons I sort of bought it. But I have sort of heard good things about it, so another film I'm looking forward to giving a bit of a watch. So that's Frankenweenie. Right, yeah, that's my update. Just some stuff that I bought and watched. Yeah, thanks for watching. Sort of seeing these films, you know, leave me a comment and tell me your thoughts. I guess that's it. Yeah, so till next time, I'll see you all later. Bye.